So today we're going to be welding PVC vinyl, and I'm going to walk you through the steps. So first thing we do, we got a seam here that needs welded, and we got to inspect the seam. And I see there's a little bit of glue on top of the vinyl. So I'm going to take some denatured alcohol, and I like using denatured alcohol because it dries fast and it leaves no residue. So just put a little bit on a rag and clean up your seam before you weld. That's the first step. Might be a little bit more here. And all we're doing is just cleaning off the glue residue on top of the vinyl, cleaning it up a bit. Okay. This looks pretty good. Okay. Now we have to groove the seam, and we've got two different ways we can groove this seam. But before I do that, we have to warm up our welders. So I'm going to plug our welder in. And get it warmed up while I'm grooving. Okay. The welder itself has a on and off button, and then a dial from 0 to 10. And when we weld, we always want to check the manufacturer's recommendations to see what temp we need to set our welder at. And they don't always tell us on these rolls. Or you might have your shop send you out some welding rod and the sticker's peeled off and you don't know. That's why it's good to do a test run on a scrap before we get into the welding on the actual seam and the floor, so we can dial in the heat temperature. And this one doesn't have one per se. So I'm going to fire up my welder, and I'm going to start at a low temperature, around 4. That's a good base low temperature to start at. So I turned on the power, turned the dial to 4. Now I'm going to let that warm up, and I'm going to start my grooving process. Okay, so this is a hand groover. It's two-sided. I'm going to first start grooving this seam, and we have to center the seam with the center of the groover. So I line it up and make sure I'm centered on my seam. And then we start grooving. This is PVC vinyl, so we need to groove half to 2/3 of the vinyl thickness. Okay. You should have 2 pieces. If you groove it properly and you're centered when you groove, you should have 2 nice pieces. And you're hitting both edges. Here's another one I can groove. I'll align it, make sure I'm centered over the seam with the groover, and go ahead and groove. And this groover being two-sided, you make your first pass, and to finish, you have to use the top of the groover to get the rest out. Now, this is the one method you can use is a hand groover, or you can use a turbo groover. These are designed to stay in your seam and groove at a faster pace. So, when I get ready to groove, I center myself over the seam. And it has a little fin that will drop down into the seam. When you use two hands, you have more control. And you start to groove it by pushing. And it will ride in the seam and give you a nice groove. And you will still get your two pieces, one from each side of the seam. Now to finish off, because this will only go so far, you turn this around and it has another groover, so you can finish to the wall. And that helps you get to the wall. Now all I do is turn around and finish to the other wall. Okay. Now that we are grooved out, we are ready to cut our length. And you want to give yourself a little bit of extra, so I will run it up the wall about an inch. And run it down the whole seam and give myself another inch on this end extra. Okay. Now that I have done that, you want to cut about 1/4 of your welding rod, because you cannot make this in one pass. It takes 2 passes. And I will demonstrate. This has warmed up. You can feel the heat coming out. Usually takes a few minutes for the welder to heat up. And when we're welding, we want to stay at a constant speed. A nice, smooth, constant speed. we feed our welding rod into the tip. This welding rod has a natural curve, and we want the natural curve to come out of the welding tip this way. We do not want to feed it through to where the welding rod will curl down. So before I start, I warm this welding rod up by feeding it through the tip and pulling out and just getting this end warmed up. Once it's been warmed up, you're ready to weld. You'll see the welding rod come out the end of the tip. And you keep this nice, slow, steady speed. You don't want your gun tipped up or laid down. You want your welding tip to be parallel with the floor. And always keep a constant speed. And you just let the gun ride along until the end of your welding rod. Like so. Now, at the beginning, I cut a quarter of my welding rod off so I could finish. But we cannot finish until I skive half of this weld with a plate and a spatula knife. So, we place the plate over the weld, centered, and the spatula knife has a bevel. You can skive with the bevel down or the bevel up. I prefer the bevel down. You put your skive knife in the slots of the plate and give it a push. Now I have half this weld skive, and I will go ahead and cut off that half skived weld. Now we are ready to turn and come the other way to finish this weld. So, like when I started, I'm going to preheat the weld. Once I have preheated my welding rod, I am ready to go. Nice, slow, steady speed. And all we do is ride over the top of your half-skived weld. I just ride over the top. And we should be good. Now we have to finish skiving the weld with the plate and the spatula knife. So I am going to start here. All welds have to be skived in two passes. Otherwise, your welded seam will be concave, and we don't want that. It will trap dirt, and it will make for an unsightly seam. So, there's my first pass. Now I am ready for my second pass. I put slight pressure down on the tip of the spatula knife and continue down nice and slow. There is no rush. You do not want to dig into the vinyl. And we go all the way to the wall. Okay. Now I am ready to turn and finish skiving the other direction. Slight pressure down on the tip of the spatula knife. All the way to the wall. Now we have a nice seam that is welded. Now, you can also take your welding gun and slowly run it over the top of the seam with your heat. It's called glazing the seam. And what it does is closes the pores in the weld. So I will slowly give this seam a little heat all the way down. like so. Little side-to-side motions. It doesn't take a lot of heat. We don't want to touch the vinyl. We just want to hover across it and give it a little bit of heat. So the pores in the weld will close. This type of flooring is very sanitary. It's antimicrobial. Hospitals use this vinyl to keep patients safe. From bacteria, infections. And there we have it. Now, in order to cool this down, we have to cool it down by turning the temperature knob back to 0. We cannot just shut this off. It will ruin the heating element inside of your welder. So, anytime we use these, we put the knob back to 0 and we let it cool until your tip is cool to the touch. It takes approximately 5 minutes to cool this down.